Okay. Hello, welcome to Undisputed Boxing Chat. My name is Ave. I'm here with Rick. We're here to talk about Alexander Usyk versus Derek Chisora coming up in 2 weeks. And then 3 weeks after that, I think it is, we've got the rematch, Povetkin versus Whyte. So Derek Chisora is he's one of those fighters who's just had a bit of a renaissance in his career where he was essentially dumped by Frank Warren. I think it was like maybe 2 fights after Tyson Fury. I can't remember the Brazilian fighter that he was fighting, and it was at that point I really thought that his career was done. I think this was like 2016, and then he's gone on to have, I think, 1 or 2 pay-per-view fights since then under Eddie Hearn, and he's got another pay-per-view fight with Alexander Usyk. What do you think about this fight coming up, Rick?
I always look at fights in terms of, especially when I'm looking at who's going to win, in terms of percentages. So I see this as a 70-30 fight for Usyk. But it's good in a way because I think anything like that, there's still a lot of intrigue. And I think, at the moment, if Usyk had already fought someone in the heavyweight division who's any good, which he hasn't, then so if he'd been through a Takam or someone like that and dealt with Takam easily, then I would probably have given Chisora just a puncher's chance. There's a lot of unknowns in this fight. There's a lot of unknowns. And the main unknowns are with Usyk. And that's why you've got to put a question mark, and you can debate how big that question mark is. But for me, there's a 30% chance for Chisora to win this, and which is more than a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it. And it's one of those perfect fights that are going to be made because Usyk brings not heavyweight titles, but he's ex-undisputed of the cruiserweight division. He's fought on pay-per-view before. He's got a scalp like Bellew. So the British fans know him. And Chisora, if he gets beat, puts up a really good fight and is beat marginally on points, it still probably not catapults him, but he doesn't really drop from where he is now. And he's had a decent payday because on pay-per-view. So they kind of need each other. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm intrigued. And I think, I wouldn't rule out Chisora pulling it off.
Really? I think you see it a lot closer than I do. I think this is like 90-10 for Usyk. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that. I think there's a lot of time that's passed now since Chisora last fought for one. And I do think that the crowd factor is something that really got Chisora over the line with the likes of Takam, and why we saw such a great performance against Whyte. I actually thought he won the first fight with Whyte. The second fight, obviously, a lot more conclusive. But I do think that the crowd factor, obviously not if they don't have a crowd, I think that really favours Alexander Usyk. But yeah, I think... because we've seen it with the football as well. Like, look at the crazy results that we're getting in the football, like the football kicking off, and there's like no crowd.
I think you're right. I think that's a factor. I don't see it as big as the other ones. I mean, I think under the Takam fight, the crowd got him through it, but I don't think it's going to be that kind of fight. I don't think he's going to be the aggressor. So I don't think he's going to be holding on to dear life, and the crowd are going to get him through it. I don't think it'd be that kind of fight. And I think he's ready. He's prepared for it now. He knows what it's going to be like. And hopefully just the fact that it's such a big fight anyway, if you can't get up for it, there's problems.
Yeah.
And I think I wouldn't say he's a changed person, but he's a slightly different fighter than he was a few years ago. I know he's at the back end of his career, but he has seemed to have changed slightly as a fighter. So I think it's a bit of a factor, but I don't see it as a major one. I just think there's question marks at the moment for Usyk at this level. And I mean the heavyweight division, not the skill. I mean it was, Bellew was with him until 6 rounds in. I mean, I thought that was quite a close fight. But Bellew just couldn't couldn't keep it up, I don't think. It's going to be a totally different fight with Chisora. You know, but Chisora won't be that about Usyk, I don't think. Because I don't think there's two big question marks, I think, for Usyk. One, can he carry the power up? Because I don't think he was a massive puncher at cruiserweight. So can he double a heavyweight, legitimate heavyweight who's got a reasonable chin, and what can he take? And I don't think you've got those question marks with Chisora. And I'm not promoting that Chisora wins this. Remember, I just said it's 70-30. Because I think the way I see it is this is a points victory for Usyk.
Yeah,
I think
that's my prediction as well.
So if I had to put money on it, but I think he'll have to get through awkward times, and I do think there's a chance that he could be worn down by Chisora.
Yeah.
So it's not a lucky punch, because I think, you know, a puncher's chance anyone's got, and Chisora's definitely got that. I can see other ways where he can win Chisora, but I still favour Usyk. But there's a big thing for Usyk, because if Usyk gets through by the skin of his teeth, you know, maybe has to come off the canvas and all that stuff, it's going to hurt his brand name to some degree. I think, you know, the one result I struggle to see is, well, I do struggle to see Usyk knocking Chisora out. Even a late stoppage, I do struggle to see it, and I struggle to see Chisora outboxing him and winning on points. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure neither of those will happen. But
I think it's either an Usyk on points or Chisora. I think it's going to be dangerous and live in the first maybe 5 or 6 rounds, and then I think as soon as he's, you know, starts to maybe gas out a little bit or take a couple of rounds off, I think that's where Usyk's class will really kind of come through. And I think if there is a stoppage, it'll just be through flurry of punches and nothing coming back from Chisora.
I think as well, like, Usyk doesn't start fast normally. He takes his time, warms into a fight, and Chisora of late has been the opposite. He just goes in at quite a fast pace, but one he can usually sustain for a lot of the fight. It's just, can he keep him off him? You know, he's a big lump, Chisora, and, you know, strong, heavy, hits hard. He won't be as strong as him. He'll be leaning on him. It'd be a different world, and you just don't. And I think that's why I give the 30, because he's in a new world, really. Yeah. And I don't think is he for? I don't think that's a
you're right. He's definitely got the physical attributes that Chisora's got. I don't think Usyk will have faced that. Certainly in the pro game. In the amateur, he's a well-decorated amateur. Obviously, it's noted that he fought Joe Joyce in the amateurs and pretty much, you know, outboxed him. But I don't know. It's interesting how you see it close. I really think this is a comfortable win for Usyk, but it's a good sort of keep busy fight to see where he's at and to see how he's going to be matched against some of the bigger heavyweights like potentially Fury or AJ, and that's obviously what he's going to be going for next year. There's another quick question.
I think if Usyk,
go on.
Right, I think if Usyk sees it as a keep busy fight, he's in trouble.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, I mean, he knows that if he wins this, he's got the golden ticket, hasn't he, to fight AJ? He's mandated by the WBO.
Yeah, but if you go in with that mentality of this is just a tick over, I'll get through it, I think he's going to have. I'm pretty sure he'll have some rough periods in the fight. I am quite sure he'll have a few rough periods, and if you have that mentality of, oh, this should be an easy one, you'll struggle to adjust. I don't think he will go in like that. I think he knows he's in a bit of a fight. Especially early on. So I don't think there's a danger of that. But if he is thinking this is a keep busy and a tick over, I think he could come unstuck. Yeah,
we'll see. All right, before we go into the next fight, what's your take on this being a pay-per-view fight? Do you see this as a pay-per-view? I thought it was when I first saw that it was a pay-per-view, I was a little bit like, I don't know if this is pay-per-view.
It's the well debated on the internet, this, isn't it? I've always seen if it sells, it's a pay-per-view fight. Yeah. And I think it will do all right. You know, pay-per-view and not pay-per-view is a matter of someone's opinion, but also at the same time, you might not see it as pay-per-view, but if 500,000 do, it was pay-per-view. And it depends what kind of money that they're trying to make. This is not an AJ pay-per-view where they the pool fight will probably do 500,000 views. I would have thought this will probably do 250. And I don't know what the number is that makes it a pay-per-view fight, but it's whatever they need it to be. And anything at 250, anything above 200 is probably me. If they think they can get 200, they'll do it, and therefore it's pay-per-view. So under that rule, then I think it is pay-per-view, and I'll buy it. So it's pay-per-view. I can see the arguments because it's not a world title fight. Usyk's just moved up. Chisora's been beaten a number of times. And he's only beaten Price recently of any note, and that's not really a big note. So I totally get it, but it is the heavyweights. Usyk's well known. It's an intrigue. I find it an intriguing fight, but I can see an argument why people don't want to buy it, but then don't buy it. That'd be my thing.
I know. I was just like, from some of the stuff that I've read and watched, I was just thinking, well, Lomachenko doesn't really do very good pay-per-view figures in the UK. I'm like, well, how does Usyk? And I'm not necessarily clumping them together, but obviously they're often sort of compared to one another. But I guess Lomachenko is probably a lot more well known in the US, and that's obviously a much bigger market. But I guess it's a bit of a masterstroke how Usyk kind of fought Bellew, and Bellew just had the 2 David Haye pay-per-views, so it's just kind of riding on the coattails of that Bellew fight and then go straight into a Chisora. So maybe, I don't know.
I think 3 reasons why Lemo and Usyk are different. One, the Matchroom factor and Sky behind him. 2, the Bellew fight. And 3, undisputed and going up to heavyweight. The heavyweight factor is a massive thing. If Chisora and Usyk and Whyte, Povetkin, if that was not heavyweight, struggling to see how the pay-per-views. The heavyweight factor is a massive factor in it. And there's no change in it. It's just, I think it's always been like that. You can be an okay heavyweight fighter and you'll earn more than an okay middleweight.
Yeah. All right. So final prediction is what?
Usyk on points.
Yeah.
But I think he'll have a few rough moments.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going Usyk points as well. All right. So that's that one done. The next heavyweight fight, obviously got a great calendar coming up right now between now and Christmas time. So the next one after that, obviously, that we'll be looking forward to in the heavyweight division, we'll just sort of focus on the heavyweights for now, is Povetkin versus Whyte, the rematch. Now, this is massive. This is as big as it gets for Dillian Whyte, because if he does lose this, he's kind of in no man's land, and a little bit what happened to David Price a few years ago when he rematched Tony Thompson. And his career never really kind of recovered since then. And he's just been one of those kind of almost like a gatekeeper to like European and world level. And I think Dillian Whyte's in a lot of danger of that potentially happening to him. And I think he could kiss goodbye all of the big fights if he doesn't pull it, the win off. And logic would say, he was winning the fight comfortably, but is he going to go into the fight with a slightly different mindset? Is he going to be a little bit more negative? There's so many factors at play, and I think that's what makes it a really intriguing fight. Like, how do you see this going?
It's a dangerous fight to get back into. I can see why he's done it. And you're right, if he loses this, he does slide down quite some way. It's funny actually because you can, when fighters get beat, you can go down the Price route or the Chisora route. I think Chisora's lost like 9 times. Yeah. It's amazing how many times Chisora's lost, and he is still in big fights. So a lot of it's just up here, and right person at the right time coming along as well to fight with. But I think Whyte would be more like a Chisora, where he'll lose this, he'll fight a few people. I think within 2000, if he loses this, 2021 will be a building year, but 2022, I would see him back in the mix. I think he's headstrong, but I think I see this similar. I think this is another 70-30 for me, but for for Whyte. I think I was always a bit worried him going into this. This is weird. This will sound weird, but I think I had the fight 60-40 last time to Whyte in my head.
Yeah.
So I favoured him, but I favoured him a bit less than I do now. And one of the threats I thought he had was he's a sneaky puncher, Povetkin. He's a really sneaky puncher. We've seen it in a lot of his fights. He throws very short punches up close, weird angles. They just get through. He caught Joshua with a few, especially early on. And I always felt that Whyte was a bit leaky and could things would sneak in. I didn't see that as a one-punch finish coming. I thought I actually thought he'd win, but he'd have to come off the canvas, Whyte, in that going into that fight. Why I've gone slightly stronger for Whyte, which is odd considering what happened, is I think the way that Povetkin can win, the only way Povetkin can win is how he won last time. And I don't think he's going to outpoint him. I don't think he's going to, it's going to be that kind of win. And I think he's more acute to it now. I also think, I don't think Povetkin had much left. Going into just after the knockdown, when he's on the floor, Whyte, Povetkin moves to the corner and he's not on steady legs.
Yeah.
When he's moving. So I don't think Whyte had that long, and he had him down twice. So I actually think it's right. Everyone's focusing on Whyte could get caught again, but Povetkin was not far from going, and I think he's not got time left in the sport.
No.
I go towards Whyte. I still think there's a risk because I think he could still get caught the same again.
Yeah.
How you see?
I would tend to sort of agree with you a little bit, actually, and I think maybe it is going to be even in more favour of Whyte this time. I think that he'll right the wrongs. I think he'll correct, some of his mistakes, and I do think that Povetkin looked pretty much gone by rounds 4-5. Like he didn't really look like he wanted to have much more, and it did look like it was only really going to go one way. How old is Povetkin now? Is he 40? Is he 40 now? Let me just double check.
I think he's 41. I think he's 41.
41, yeah. So
yeah. How would you advise Chisora to go into this? How would you? Because that's the one thing I've seen a lot of debate about. He's there's talk of, or there's some people saying, he had him hurt, he should have gone in for the kill. There's lots of fights in history that show you that's sometimes a wrong thing to do. Joshua in New York. Yeah. When you get it, when you listen to Whyte, he almost feels like he gave, he should have got onto him quicker. But then there's a risk. What would you? It's one of the things
that makes him. One of the things that makes him really great, like fundamentally and skill-wise, he's kind of a little bit better than Chisora, I guess, but he's not. He's not ultra skilled like Ortiz or Fury. Doesn't like his feet. He can come across a little bit kind of plodding. I do think he's a lot more conditioned now. I was quite impressed with his conditioning. He looked like in much better shape. But it is one of the things that makes him great. He comes forward. He'll sit on the chest, but he does leave himself open a little bit. So if you kind of try and change him a little bit, make him be a little bit more cautious, you almost kind of potentially take away one of his attributes, which makes him great and great to watch as well. But I think that is what he's just going to make sure he doesn't get caught with anything silly. I know it sounds obvious, but he's just going to make sure that if he gets him hurt, nothing silly, because Povetkin has always got that left hook that can stop the show. But I see this really as a points win for Whyte, and I think he'll almost kind of take the similar approach to what AJ did against Ruiz. I think he'll just be a little bit more cautious, maybe sit on the back foot a little bit, just get that jab working, and I think it'll be sort of a points win is what I'm predicting. Might not be that great a fight either, because he's going to.
See, I I don't think it's going to go like that. I think he'll start off cautious, but I'm talking a round or two. And then I think he's gonna wait for a shot, try and get him, and if he senses him weak, and he'll go for it. I think he's just going to absolutely go for it. I think he's almost going to go back to how he's been in the past. I don't think he'll do a Joshua or try to reinvent. I think the last fight we saw, the last Povetkin fight, I think that is him trying to reinvent himself a little bit, be a bit more of a boxer, take your time, and all that stuff. And it didn't work. And I think he'll go back to how he used to box, where Joshua was his normal self and had to find a different way. I mean, the body shots as well, I think, had a big impact in that fight. I think he was getting hit to the body a lot. And I think he's got a better jab actually than he was using, Whyte. He could have kept him away a little bit, and he was letting him come in and getting those hooks to the body. And I think ultimately, I don't think it was slowing him down, but I think he was aware of them, and that's what made him lower his guard, and that's how the uppercut came through. So it did have an effect. It created the leaky defense for the winning shot. But so I think he's got to be a bit careful on that. But yeah, I've got a feeling he'll start off like he did last time, but then he'll just go for him.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I've got a slightly different take on it as well, but yeah, we'll see. All right, okay. So final prediction.
I think Whyte will knock him out round 6.
Really? Yeah, I'm going for a points finish again for Dillian Whyte.
It's bad this, because this is now going to be in history, our predictions. So there's no getting out of it. When Whyte's sprawled on the canvas after 30 seconds.
I know, but that's the beauty of boxing.
No getting away.
Nobody really knows, even the experts. So yeah, no, but I'm looking forward to it. All right, cool.
Especially with heavyweight boxing, you just don't know. It can be over like that. We've been going a bit over 20 minutes, so we could throw another cheeky subject in.
Okay. What do you want to talk about?
Well, we're doing the other 2 fights next time round. So how about a fight that should be happening but isn't? What's your take on the what's going on with Wilder Fury 3?
Oh, well, it is all a bit strange, isn't it? I mean, I know that you're kind of big on following videos in the US and Wilder, but I don't think there's no real noise coming out of what's going on there. I mean, I've been quite sort of vocal on Wilder, when we've spoken about and debated boxing. I never really kind of rated him, and I do think that they kind of held that WBC belt hostage almost for 5 or 6 years or whatever it was, without really fighting any sort of top contenders. They didn't really want to know on any undisputed fights, and I think they went into that Tyson Fury fight and completely underestimated his ability. And I think most people would agree that he lost that first fight on points, and then second fight was obviously a lot more conclusive. And really, I think that was him getting found out. And I actually think I'd be very surprised if he comes back, to be honest. Because if he's not going to take
that Povetkin fight, didn't they? Wilder had that Povetkin fight that fell through because he tested positive, didn't he? He was going to go over to Russia and fight Povetkin. That would have been his only real test. I mean, Ortiz was a test, to be fair, but
I never bought into that. I never thought that he was going to fight Povetkin. When it was announced, I was like, I just could not.
He was mandatory though, wasn't he? He was mandatory, so he had to.
Was he? And then what? Did he fail a drugs test? Why didn't that fight happen?
Povetkin failed the drugs test, yeah.
And then he ended up.
But they went to Perspit
or something like that, wasn't it?
It might have been, or he's failed that many tests. I forget.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but yeah, I'd be very surprised if he's back in the ring. I think Fury will have a tick-over fight in December, and it won't be anybody dangerous. And then obviously all eyes on AJ next year. What do you think? What do you think will happen with Wilder? What do you make of it all?
I suppose there's two things to debate here or to talk about. There's one, why has it happened, and do we believe it? And two, who do you think what do you think they'll do? So like, there just seems to be this. I mean, Shelley Finkel's still saying, oh, it can happen in December. And it's all down to this contract. And, we never get to see what these contracts say, but there was a time frame built in.
Yeah.
I think they were meant to fight in June, weren't they? And there was an injury and he got back, which they couldn't have done anyway because of Corona. And then October it was meant to be, and then no. And then, so depends what's all in the wording, and now it's fallen through because of I think both networks are saying there's too many college games, football games on the 19th. So they don't want to put it on then, because the college season's been extended because of Corona. So that normally wouldn't be there. Right. And I think they're just saying, I'm fed up now. But Fury's just saying, I'm fed up now, so I want to have a fight. But you don't know if it means they still have to fight in February or March. You're just not hearing anything from Wilder. Is it a good excuse for Wilder just to say, well, I don't really want the fight anyway, so we'll draw it out and then blame it on the networks? It's strange, and I can't think that Shelley Finkel and co are that incompetent. They wouldn't know that this was going to happen.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't blame Fury for wanting to take it.
It's a bit of a PR disaster, I think, for on Wilder's side. They've got to, at least if it's just like a 30-second video, Wilder coming out going, the rematch is on, we're pushing, this is when we want to do it, or somebody saying, look, this is why it can't happen, we're going to push for February, March, but not hear anything. It doesn't really fill you with confidence. Who do you think?
Well, do people have to take pay cuts? Do people have to take pay cuts in all this? You know what I mean? And maybe that's the thing, saying to Fury, you have to take a pay cut. And Fury's like, sod that. But then Wilder, like, if you really want,
even as well on the last one.
Yeah.
On the last one, they only just broke even. So with no crowd, surely it's going to be a massive hole in it somewhere. And
then there's still rumours that he's still not over in that bicep injury, and all that. But I'd like to see. I mean, in a way, I wanted to see the fight. I think when you get two fighters like that fighting. And they were both good fights, the two fights. They're entertaining. So though I'd prefer to see other fights, I wasn't disappointed that they were going to fight again. I can think of worse fights. I'd rather see that fight than probably the horse shit that Fury will end up fighting. But then I hear that's going to be. They're looking to. I saw a Frank Warren interview, and they basically said they're looking to do that on pay-per-view in the UK. So that will be 4 pay-per-views, but therefore it's got to be someone quite good. You can't have Lucas Brown coming over for a pay-per-view fight, can you? I'm trying to think who he can fight in that top 15 that's realistic, that can warrant pay-per-view, or to do the numbers that they need again, like to get the 200 mark. Andy Ruiz, he's not going to come out. He's not going to come. You could, an Ortiz, could they get him to come over? Charles Martin is known. I think you're going to have a.
That's actually a good shout, Charles Martin. You could see them serving up Charles Martin because he's kind of a name, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's on a bit of a comeback trial as well. Is he won his last 2 fights now?
Yeah, I think he's. After the 8, I think he's only been beaten by Kaunaki.
Right. Yeah. So he's in that kind of
only defeat.
He's in that top 15, top 20. That'd be a credible name at short notice. I mean, I think that's the excuse that they'll use. If it's a bad name, they'll go, look, this is all we could get at short notice.
Yeah.
But
but then don't put it on pay-per-view. Right, that'd be my thing in a sense.
I think
it's
the way. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Wilder back in the mix because I think he's an interesting character, and whether you love him or loathe him, he's another interesting character and another interesting dynamic to the division. But I don't know.
He's entertaining.
Yeah, he is.
He's entertaining. I mean, he's got awesome power, but he's vulnerable as well. In fact, if you look at the top lot of heavyweights at the moment, they're all they're all entertaining, for very similar ways. I mean, Fury used to be not entertaining, but he's how he's come back is a bit more entertaining if he carries on fighting like he has done. But he's vulnerable. I think he's got a very good chin, but he goes down easy. Yeah. But do you know what I mean? He depends on a chin. It's not hard to get him down. It's hard to keep him down.
Yeah.
But they've all got those vulnerabilities, haven't they?
Yeah.
What do you think Wilder would do then? Fights off. Do you think he'll take a fight in December?
I don't know. I just think if he doesn't take that Fury fight, like where does he go? Like, I just don't think there'll be any way back for him. And it's almost like his people don't get on very well with certain promotional outfits, and I don't know. I think he'll just sail off into the sunset. Maybe he doesn't really feel like he needs it anymore.
He'd have made a lot of money. It depends what their expectations are. I mean, I think if they don't take this fight, all the belts will be tied. You'd have thought the belts will be tied up for a lot of next year. Having said that, if the Joshua and AJ fight, sorry, the AJ and Fury fight, they do the double header.
Yeah.
You'd imagine the first one for all the belts, maybe not the WBO. The WBO that's Usyk's mandatory for?
Usyk's mandated for the WBO, yeah.
Yeah, so that one could slip through unless they do a deal. But I think the second fight, the WBO and the WBC will be elsewhere. I don't think they can hold all 4 belts for the 2 fights.
Yeah.
I think they'll do everything heaven and earth to keep the 4 to make that first fight undisputed, and then 2 belts will go off. So he could fight for the WBC again end of next year.
Yeah.
So that could be a really Whyte fight if Whyte gets through.
It'll be highly ranked. So yeah, could happen.
What I'd like to see in that case is I'd like to see hopefully Whyte does beat Povetkin. He maybe takes another fight next summer. Knowing him, it will be someone difficult, but maybe he can give himself a bit of a pass. And then Wilder in December has a tick-over fight. I don't know what that looks like, but, maybe a Washington level fighter. I know he's fought Washington, but someone like that. And him and Andy Ruiz fight next summer. And the winner fights Whyte for the WBC.
Yeah,
it's vacated.
Yeah, well, that could happen. They're in the same camp. Is Ruby's back now? Is he? He's had another fight yet? Or is he back in training?
He was meant to come back in December, and now they're saying it'd be more like February, which is a shame, really, because I mean, it's what you believe, but he's been under. Is Eddie Reynosa?
Yeah,
the trainer.
He's only
so Canelo's. He's in that camp, isn't he? Well, he's meant to have been back a few months, so you'd think he'd be ready for a December fight of some quality. But it doesn't have to be high level. You'd thought he'd be ready to come back. So part of me is like, I think they said something like, "Oh, when he comes back, we want him to be fully ready," and all that. But then I think, well, who are you going to be fighting when you first come back? So you might as well get an easier one out the way in December. So it does make me wonder: is it a crowd thing? Is it being able to find a slot, or is it he ain't behaving himself?
Yeah.
And they're like, he's still not dedicated, so there's no way we're going to put him in December. Hard to know. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of boxers struggle mentally for a long time after they lose, and even he did when he got beat off Parker. He said he mentally struggled for a year. I don't think he fought for over a year after he got beat by Parker in Auckland.
Yeah, I actually thought that was a really close fight as well.
When he won the world title, he went after he won the world title. So what's he going to be like when he lost it? So I don't know. There's part of me that wouldn't mind betting he's some awful kind of condition at the moment, and that's why the December fight's not happening. Right, but we'll see. You don't hear much of him, and it's interesting because it's like last night it was Lopez and Lomachenko. It was in, are they in Vegas at the moment in the book?
Yeah. Is it the MGM Grand? in the bubble.
And yeah, it'd been. I know it wasn't heavyweight, but it'd been a good time to get one of Wilder or Ruiz in the studio. And I know they're not fighting the weights that they're at, but not all the ex-fighters that were there commentating were the same weight as Lomo. So it'd been good to see there and just talking about the future. But it's just like they've all gone underground.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on really.
It is really strange. Do you know what I find really strange? Like in the US, there isn't any like standout like pay-per-view star. I know we're kind of digressing a little bit now, but like if you think of like the top like boxers in the US in terms of like marketability and revenue generating, you're probably talking about like Canelo is the obvious one, not American. Lomachenko, maybe. Golovkin. Like who's like the most marketable like US like or the most well-known, I should say, boxer in the US that's American? Wilder, Crawford, Errol Spence. You struggle really, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, Spence was doing some good numbers before the car crash, and didn't he? I think he didn't he get 45,000 the Cowboy Stadium? So that's not bad going.
Yeah.
But he's obviously got a lot of momentum with the crash and then COVID.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, if you're talking Mayweather levels, I mean, Joshua and Fury are huge in the UK, and let's face it, Fury could fight anyone. They could put it on pay-per-view and probably get 200,000. I mean, the only question mark on it this December is there's so many pay-per-views.
Yeah.
But if Wilder doesn't fight Fury and he fights someone like a Gerald Washington, I don't think they can get away with the pay-per-view.
No.
In the States for that.
No, definitely.
So it's who's a legitimate pay-per-view star, meaning you could fight anyone and it's pay-per-view.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I just don't think they've had that really since Mayweather.
No. And they're rare. They don't grow, they don't grow in trees, and they can't, because it can't be sustained that you have loads. Yeah. In all the history, there's never been like.
Yeah, but there's usually like a passing of the torch, doesn't it? Like for many years, it was like Oscar De La Hoya, and then Mayweather beat him, and then he kind of made all this kind of money being like the villain. But people wanted to kind of like watch him, and then he kind of passed the torch to Canelo.
Well, at the moment, it's Canelo, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That torch is Canelo.
Yeah.
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 There's only you can only really have one or two in the in either market, I think.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're probably right.
You can only have two, and you can only have two in the UK, really. I think if Wilder had beaten Fury first time round, if he hadn't got up and he went on to fight Joshua and done the same to Joshua, he'd be huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Especially if Joshua had beaten Ruiz and then they'd met and all that, it would have been different. I mean, I think the
missed opportunity now when you think back on it, don't you?
Say that again, sorry.
I was saying it's a massive, missed opportunity on Wilder's part, Wilder's camp. Like they could have really kind of cashed in there, but it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were right to hold out for so long, but then when they were getting offered that 2-fight deal, what was it? I think it was $100 million, wasn't it? It was the Brazil fight for 20 million, which you wouldn't have got normally, and then 2 back-to-back Joshua fights worth 40. I think that's the one he should have taken. And what did he do? I think he fought Ortiz twice.
Yeah.
Nothing like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no. Did he fight Ortiz, then Brazil, and Ortiz again? Wasn't it Ortiz back to back? Was it?
Let me double check. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. Yes, I think it was.
I think he went Ortiz, Brazil, Ortiz.
A lot of people like up in arms going, like, why is he fighting Ortiz again? But yeah. Anyway, we digress.
So if you break it down, so this is the choice. You could have fought Brazil for 20, back-to-back Josh for 40, so 100 million in 3 fights. Instead, he fought Brazil for something, he fought Ortiz for something, and he fought Fury for something and got battered. Yeah. What do you reckon he made in those 3 fights? I'd be surprised if he got to 50 million from those 3.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think for the first Fury fight, he got 4 million. And Fury actually got 3 million.
Fury
But
fight.
That's not the total amount, but that's what their purse was. I think they would have got add-ons for the pay-per-view buys. But if you look it up, for the first fight, Wilder got 4 and Fury got 3 million.
Yeah,
I remember.
But in terms of the second fight, I think they got a bit more. But I'd be surprised if they got to those 3 fights he had, because I think basically what happened is after that offer from DAZN, I think he started getting better money. So I think he got more for the fight than he would have normally done.
Yeah.
Because I think basically meeting with DAZN, they said, right, 100 million for these 3 fights, and you get a crack at Joshua and undisputed and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it meant that Al Heyman and co had to go, right, well, we want you to fight Brazil and then Ortiz and then Fury. You know, I don't think they matched 100 million, but I think they got close to it.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue, you know, solid was that 100 million. But yeah, it does look a bad decision now. Because I think even though I'd probably back Joshua against Fury, against Wilder, I think he's got a better chance of beating Joshua than he's got of beating Fury.
Yeah.
If I'm if you put Fury in a ring with Wilder, I think he's got a better chance than Joshua has. Though I back the UK lads, to be fair, against him. But
yeah, I agree. I just think the third fight is a little bit of a double. But anyway, yeah, we can talk about this till the cows come home. Anyway, how long is that now?
It was about 37 minutes, I think we were on. 41. So yeah, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. All right. So predictions done. Let's do it again in a couple of weeks' time. We're going to review Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, and AJ Pulev, and other heavyweight news. All right.
See you later.